Welcome to the Good Enough Lap Guide in the Ford Mustang GT4 at Le Mans, your lap guide to move up through the splits. The purpose of this video is to give you guys a foundation that you can build a solid, consistent lap off of. Once you can run those solid, consistent laps, you get in the race with the goal to finish the race, you will move up through the splits. First, we'll talk about the track characteristics of Le Mans. A lot of the track is flowing corners where it takes a lot of nuance to really get that perfect line, patience to get that perfect line, especially going through the Porsche Curves, Tertre Rouge, the S's, the Dunlop Chicanes. All the little weavy bits of this track take a lot of finesse. That being said, there are a lot of opportunities to pass here. Coming out of Tertre Rouge, going on to the first part of the stretch, coming out of the first chicane, you have a good opportunity to pass if you do better than someone on exit. Coming out of the second chicane, you have a better opportunity to get a pass on someone if you get a better run out of that corner. Coming out of Mulsanne or turn 15, you get a better run out of there, you're going to get a good opportunity to pass someone going into turn 18. And then even coming out to turn 20 or Arnage, you will get a good opportunity to pass someone going into the Porsche Curves if you do get out of that corner better in them. And then last but not least, the last set of chicanes, you can even get a pass on the straightaway. So there are a lot of opportunities to pass here, even though we won't be running a lot of races and the sprint race. But I do believe this track opens up a lot of opportunity for some good racing. Next, we'll talk about the car characteristics of Mustang GT4 this week around Le Mans. I really like the setup around Le Mans this week. I think it's very stable setup. If you do overdrive the car though, you will get a little understeer on entry and middle. On exit, I'm really not finding it getting too loose on me unless I overdrive that middle on entry, and then you will get a little snap oversteer. But overall, I am really enjoying the setup this week at Le Mans. For this lap, the weather was 67 degrees Fahrenheit or 19.44 degrees Celsius. The track temp was 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius. The lap time was a 4:13.357. Sector 1 was a 37.590, Sector 2 was a 27.817, Sector 3 was a 34.088, Sector 4 was a 29.800, Sector 5 was a 36.681, Sector 6 was a 36.164, and Sector 7 was a 51.220. Alright, let's get into the lap. As we're heading into turn 1, we're going to use up as much of the track on the left as we can to arc out this corner as much as we can. There's no obvious turn-in point, but this is where I turn in. It is a little bit before that blue cone on the right. And then as we're going into the corner, we're going to lift just a little bit to get a little bit more rotation in the front end so we can hug that apex going through the corner. And you can see here, we're going to cut over the curb just a little bit. Don't cut more than that or they'll give you a 1X. And then we're going to start braking for the next corner, basically when we start straightening out. For turn 2, it's going to be a middle to late apex. You want to get as close to that late apex as you can so you can set yourself up nicely for turn 3. For turn 3, we're going to be aiming for that later apex. You don't want to cut too much here or you will get a slowdown penalty. For turn 4, we're going to want to hug this line around the corner. We're going to lift where you see the little lift zone up ahead. That'll just help give a little bit more weight transfer to those front tires. Help the car rotate a little bit more, and that way you can stay hugged up on this inside line through the corner. Then our braking zone for turn 6 is going to be as we're getting past that last cone there on the right. For turn 6, we're going to hug into this inside. Again, you get in a nice little groove here. You just want to make sure you don't overdrive the corner because it'll push you wide, then it'll mess you up for turn 7. But we're going to aim for a middle to late apex for this corner, so we'll have the best line going into turn 7. And then for turn 7, we're going to be aiming for a later apex. Just be careful because the car can get pretty light in the rear end when you're coming through this corner and up over the crest of the hill. So you got to be ready for that rear end to want to step out on you. And now we come to turn 8 or Tertre Rouge. So we will be braking a little bit before this flag sign on the left. Keep it in 4th gear. You don't want to hit the apex too hard or cut it too much because they will give you a slowdown penalty. So here we have our middle apex. You really want to get this right because this will give you a great opportunity to make a pass on someone going down the back stretch into the next chicane. You do need to be careful that you don't go too wide on exit there because you will get a slowdown penalty if you do. If you guys are enjoying this video, please hit that thumbs up button. I appreciate it, and subscribe as I am doing these every week for the Mustang GT4. So as we head into the first chicane, we're going to start braking right around the 200 marker. Then our turn in will be just past this orange cone. You're going to be aiming for a middle to late apex here. Don't cut too much or they'll give you a slowdown penalty. And then we'll have a later apex for the second part of the chicane. And this will help you get the best run off the corner, so hopefully you can make a pass going on down this part of the back straight away going into the next chicane. For the second chicane, we're going to brake about 50 feet before the 100 marker, and then we'll begin our very gradual turn-in at the 100 marker. It's going to be a middle late apex. We can just barely cut over the curb. Then it'll be a middle late apex. You can just barely cut, but don't cut too much or they'll give you a slowdown. I was a little too aggressive with the throttle here, so the rear end stepped out, so just be a little bit more gradual when you get on the throttle. For turn 14, we're going to begin our turn-in right at the cone. Then our braking point will be about 30 feet past the cone. We're going to continue trail braking all the way into turn 15, and then our turn-in point will be at the cone. You're going to be aiming for a middle late apex. Keep it in second gear and try and get the best run off the corner. This is where you can get an opportunity to pass somebody if they mess up their exit. Turn 18, we'll begin our braking at the 100 marker, and then our turn-in will be just as the grass ends on the left. We're going to be shooting for a late apex so we can keep the car on the right side of the track to give us the best line into turn 19. And then we'll start braking as soon as we get to the straight part of the track. We'll begin our turn-in as the green section of the curb ends on the right, and we'll be shooting for a middle late apex. We head into turn 20 or Arnage. Our braking point is going to be just past where this barrier ends on our right. Then we'll begin our turn-in just past the 50 marker. We're going to be aiming for a late apex. Again, this is one of those corners you can focus on getting a better run off the corner and possibly get a pass on somebody that struggles out of the corner going into the Porsche Curves. And up to the Porsche Curves, which I find to be one of the funnest parts of the track, but also one of the most difficult, because the whole idea is you want to optimize your speed through each corner, but if you go too fast through any one of these corners, it's going to push you too wide and it's going to mess up your line for the next corner. And because there's a corner after corner after corner through here, you want to make sure you get every corner right so you can optimize your speed through the next corner. So for turn 23, we're going to start braking at the 100 marker. Then we'll begin our turn-in as the green section of curb ends on the left. Now we want to hug this inside curb the best we can. I get a little too much speed into the corner, so I'm not able to get that optimal line, but that's how you know if you're going too fast in there. You just drag a little bit of the brake, it'll help rotate the car and pull you to the inside. And then for turn 24, this is where we're going to lift. Again, this is all feel. It's going to take you some reps to get it, to know where you should feel, to get the car to be able to rotate through the corner. If you don't lift here, you're just going to push wide. Once again, we're going to want to keep the car tight on the curb. We're going to be aiming for a middle to late apex through turn 24. We're going to get back on the throttle really quick, but then we're going to lift for the next two corners. So we're just going to let the car coast through the next two corners. So it's again, it's where you're going to get those reps in to feel where you really need to lift here, because you're actually judging this for two corners ahead to get the right speed through that corner. As we head through turn 25, we're just going to hug this curb around. As you can see, we're still coasting. We're going to do a little downshift. Then we're going to hug this curb around the corner. And then we're going to get back on the throttle for just a second right here. Once we get to this section where the asphalt comes out onto the track, that's when we're going to lift again for the next corner. There's one little second here we can blip the throttle, get a little bit more speed so we have just the right speed going into turn 27, but we're going to brake where the asphalt ends on the left. And once again, for turn 27, we're going to hug that inside curb the best we can. So those Porsche Curves, it's going to take you a while to get the feel, to get the flow, but you can see there's a lot of nuance to them, and the only way you're really going to understand that is just by practice. Now as we come into the first part of the Ford Chicanes, we're going to brake about 20 to 30 feet before the pit lane splits off from the racetrack. And then we'll begin our turn-in where the pit lane split off begins. It'll be a middle late apex for the first chicane. You can't cut too much here. For the second part of the chicane, you're going to be aiming for a middle to late apex. Again, don't cut too much. For the second part of the Ford Chicanes, we're going to start braking about 20 to 30 feet before the curb starts on the right. Then we can cut over the curb a little bit here. Don't cut too much. Same with the second part of the chicane. You can cut, just can't cut too much. And that's your good enough lap guide in the Ford Mustang GT4 at Le Mans. If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.